and they're actually held down to the rocket and to the adapter that connects them to the rocket using 4 metallic retention rods. These retention rods will be jettisoned after the Falcon 9 reaches orbit. That allows the 56 Starlink satellites to fly free of the upper stage of the launch vehicle once it reaches the proper altitude and inclination. And now you can see hold down, or the clamp rather, that reaches around the upper stage has opened to allow the strong back to recline about 1.5 degrees from the rocket. As you can see earlier, and in that shot from SpaceX at the pad, the payload fairings for this mission are reused from previous flights, as well as the first stage booster. The first stage of the Falcon 9 is number B1069 in SpaceX's inventory. It's going for its 8th flight on this mission. It debuted back in 2021.
There we have confirmation that the Falcon 9's onboard computers have control. We're waiting for the launch director's final go.
Go for launch.
And there we have it. The launch director has given his final go for launch. T-minus 30 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition and liftoff. Liftoff of the Falcon 9 carrying 56 Starlink satellites. And the Falcon 9 has cleared the launch towers. Falcon 9 is now pitching downrange. It's heading southeast from Cape Canaveral. Let's listen to the roar of those Merlin engines. As it climbs towards orbit, the Merlin engines will have throttled down and will now be re-throttling up. Now it has cleared max Q. We've had confirmation that it's reached max Q. On the left side of your screen, you're seeing the first stage of the Falcon 9, and then on the right, the separation of the payload fairing. Get a first view of the Starlink satellites stacked inside the nose cone of the rocket. The Merlin vacuum engine nozzle glowing red as the Falcon 9 second stage passes an altitude of 100 kilometers.
Teal blue waters of the Bahamas just off to the left of one of those grid fins that's unfurled on the first stage booster, looking nearly straight down 115 kilometers altitude above the surface of Earth.
Both vehicles continue to follow a nominal trajectory.
Both vehicles on nominal trajectories, according to SpaceX, and this map from SpaceX shows the location of Stage 1 flying just off the northeast coast of the Bahamas. Stage 2 is also northeast of the Bahamas, but accelerating and climbing into orbit. Stage 1, as you can see, is on that arc downrange, heading for the drone ship location. Entry burn is underway. This will last a little more than 20 seconds. You can see the velocity now rapidly decelerating on the lower left, thanks to this maneuver.
Stage 2 FTS is safe.
Stage 1 entry burn shut down.
Entry burn is now complete. The rocket will now coast, the first stage booster will now coast for about another 90 seconds before relighting its center engine for a final braking burn just before landing. Up in space on Stage 2, everything looking good. That engine nozzle on the Merlin vacuum engine glowing red hot as expected, as the rocket is now
Both
about
vehicles following a nominal trajectory.
a minute and a half from entering orbit. So we expect to have two nearly simultaneous major milestones coming up at about 8.5 minutes after launch. That'll be the landing of the first stage and orbital insertion on stage 2 with the 56 Starlink satellites. See some buffeting there as it heads deeper into the atmosphere, 2,000 meters altitude. There's the landing burn
Stage
underway.
1 landing burn.
Drone ship coming into view.
Landing lit deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
Falcon 9 has arrived on the deck of the drone ship. Just read the
Expected loss of signal.
instructions.
Cape.
This is the 8th flight, eighth flight of this booster, number 1069 in SpaceX's fleet, the 203rd landing of a Falcon booster overall. And we've heard confirmation of shutdown of the upper stage engine, as expected.
Nominal park orbit insertion.
And that's an important call from launch control, nominal orbit insertion. So the 56 satellites, the Starlink payloads on board the Falcon 9 rocket, still attached to the upper stage, are now in a parking orbit, a very low orbit. And this vehicle will coast halfway around the world for about the next 45 minutes before relighting its engine just for about 3 seconds. Very short impulse that will
Expected
circularize
loss of signal. Bermuda.
its orbit about 200 miles or 300 kilometers in altitude. That will set up for deployment of the 56 Starlink satellites coming up at 65 minutes since launch. That will be at 12:40 p.m. Eastern Time, 1640 UTC. That's when SpaceX can declare success on this morning's launch.